Jack. He's 16 and a half. And there's my daughter, like I said, who's home. All right, well, we're back together. The fun of, oh wait, this is like virtual events all over again. Oh, I said it. All right, but we're going to pivot and keep going. Derry, back to you.
Okay, so yes, Rich and myself's LinkedIn profile is up there, so we'll leave that up for a little bit if you want to add us as friends or followers or whatever that's called. And then the live bonus. So I mentioned that briefly earlier. Everyone will be getting a copy of the 15-page report on all our findings. Also, I should mention, if you do want to receive a copy of all the questions we ask, because we're not covering them all, please let me know and I'd be happy to provide that as well.
We mentioned it, but again, this is our first time opening up webinar chat. So look, we want you to interact and let us know if we're not sharing the screen or we hit technical difficulties, because you all are event organizers yourself. And so we're going to ask questions and polls throughout the thing. So we're going to ask you to share some ideas, because that will feed off what we're presenting, and also will tie in, you know, are you seeing what the research is showing? Are you not? So I also want to talk about something really, really exciting. So we are going to be creative, especially since, well, Natalie was able to change her name. Thank you, Natalie. There's a couple spots where we're going to offer some opportunities. This book, I really want to cover it for a second. Build a Better Trade Show Image is written by Marlis Arnold. It is not in bookshelves. It's not on Amazon. It's almost. There's a book launch party coming up. But this is really designed, I think, for you to think about how do you educate your exhibitors. Exhibitors need this book. You need to give this book away. These are great ways for you and your exhibitors to think about, you know, how do you create a better trade show image. And this ties a lot into the research. We're going to bring Marlis on in a future webinar, but I did want to cover it because, again, we're going to give a couple signed copies away throughout the webinar. So again, we'll talk about it. It's launching in 2 weeks, so I'm super excited. So that's part of our book giveaway. So yeah, well, Dara, let's get started, because I mean, 2022 seemed pretty awesome, didn't it?
It did. I think emotions were high, they were excited, and then we came to 2023. So how would you summarize that?
Yeah, I'm a little worried, Derry, that 2022 felt like the party. And, you know, everybody was back for a lot of events. It was the first time they were around. And I'm worried that 2023 is going to be the hangover. You know, what are we going to do to make sure attendees are engaged? What's that excitement? I'm with you. That's my big fear this year, I think, in terms of a trend. And it's interesting to see some of your feedback. I did want to call out another person answered our opening question was, you know, exhibitor big fear, paying pre-COVID booth rates or more for post-COVID attendance and traffic. Molly Marsh, yeah, I think that says it really, really well. So these are the fears, and that's why we did this survey. Because a lot of ways, I call it the Gatorade effect. Gary's probably tired of hearing this. I think the entire team around me knows I say this often. We love to dump Gatorade over our heads when we have success in the events business. Like, hey, we got registrations, we've got people signed up. But I think this year we're gonna have to look at like the long-term play. You know, even if somebody signed up, are they gonna make it to the event? Are they gonna back out? So 2022, yep, a lot of event organizers celebrated success, even at 50 to 60% returns. We had clients that were over 100% returns, but let's not start dumping Gatorade. And feel free to steal this phrase. Derry, you're probably tired of hearing it though.
Yes, to completely agree. And you mentioned, I think what drove us to actually do this survey, and we're going to continue to do it at the end of the year to get feedback on, you know, how did things change from January to like September of 2023. But we wanted to see, you know, what is the outlook? How are people feeling? Things like that. And so just to give you a little background on this survey, the qualifier for this was all participants had to have exhibited in 2022. If they did not, they could not take the survey. So that was the qualifier. We were very pleased to get a wide-ranging industry categories, from technology to education to nonprofit to association. We even had 30% that were smaller industries that noted that and didn't actually come into the bigger things, everything from a light fixture company to a cannabis company. So we had many industries represented. Another thing too is it was very important for us to have all booth size represented. And we are very, very pleased that we did achieve that. So the survey actually took place just last month. I can't believe it's mid-February already, but during 2 weeks in January, where 318 companies who exhibited in 2022 shared their feedback with us. So this whole webinar and the research report will be based on that feedback.
And that was a really important thing, and kudos to Dara to really have engineered, this process to make it. I always think sometimes in event research, it's lagging, and we really want to, survey quickly and get out information quickly and retarget it. I mean, Dara mentioned it, but I think this chart speaks. I mean, I was like, so as we were following the data along, we were so excited when we saw this breakdown, because I think it really represents what a lot of shows look like. Your 100-foot booth, or even tabletops, the 100 feet or smaller, net square feet or smaller, all the way up, to some of the smaller percentages, some of those really big booths. So I will tell you too that Dara and I did a lot of analysis too to look at the data and say, did it vary from a small booth to somebody blowing out 600 square foot booth? Very different budget, very different approach to events. So we were really happy with this representation. I'll let Dara talk about the next piece here, because it sort of shows where the data came from.
Yeah, technology was definitely the biggest industry represented with 33%, but some of the others were retail, healthcare, financial, sports. We didn't list all of them, but I mean, I think all in all, there was about 40 different industries listed. The main ones were the top 12 though. So we're going to launch a little poll, and if you could do us a favor and just click which one you is applicable to. We want to know, have you already had an event so far in 2023? I know we're only in mid-February, but we were kind of curious. Oh, okay, a lot of people have.
Yeah, this is good. Well, then this is what's hopefully too, we're, part of as we go through this process today, Dara and I are hoping to kind of, test the waters and see if the data is lining up. And if it doesn't, we'd love to hear what you're seeing that's different or where those things have changed. We'll give everybody another quick second here but otherwise, Dara, if you want to close, and we can keep on rolling here.
Yeah, I'll just share the results real quick so everybody can see. So 28% of you have had an event already. Go you. And soon for another quarter of you. So
cool. All right, let's keep rolling here. So interesting. That's great to know. Mm-hmm. Well, Dara, one of the things that sort of stood out for me was the event optimism, right?
Yes, the event optimism was probably one of the biggest things we saw, with 89% saying they're optimistic about events in 2023. You like to see that? 100% like to see that. Just to break it down a little further with you, 55% of survey respondents believe that they are increasing their event participation, 35% are maintaining their event participation, and 10% are saying that they are decreasing their event participation. And just to give you a little more on that question, we did ask the why, because we thought that was important. And of that 10%, I'd say 90% of that 10% was budget constraints for 2023. That seemed to be why they weren't increasing their participation. So that's a very promising 89%, Rich.
Yeah, and I would say, again, this was where we dove in to see if we could see any significant differences across booth size, because we thought, are the 10 by 10s hurting more, are the bigger, booths hurting more? And it was really consistent. I mean, ironically so, consistent across that. And again, I always temper the optimism. Again, I feel like everybody's getting the Gatorade bucket about to dump. I want to make sure that we get through the rest of the results, because I think there's going to be some other things that tie into that. Because what does that mean for you? Okay, great. There's optimism. Exhibitors are saying they want to come back, but we all remember Tom Cruise, right? Show me the money. Well, now it's show me the attendees. And thank you for those who dropped in a lot of the exhibitor fears, because it is. There's a lot of fear around, if I make this investment, are the attendees going to be there? So really, we delve into asking, what are they looking for? What are they expecting you? Everybody here today in the Zoom webinar, what are they expecting? Dara, what did they say? They
want better experiences for attendees. They want the attendees to come. And so that means we need to put on a show, a good show, a great show. And another thing is, if you are just marketing to your past attendees, you're doing it wrong. Unfortunately, they want the new audiences there. They want people that maybe might not even totally 100% make sense to invite. They don't care. They want them there. They want the opportunity to meet these new audiences, and then they can decide from there. So I think something that was really clear in the survey results is that in order to continue to get those attendees there, we need better experiences, we need new audience, and we need it to go up.
Barbara brought up an interesting good point, and I think we've looked at that too. Yeah, hearing only qualified leads visiting my booth, and I think that's been the balance. How can I make that happen? Of I think we went from, we used to count numbers, and then we've said, look, this is a really qualified group, and I think that is a challenge to say we want more of those qualified buyers. I think that is a great piece to making sure. And we're going to talk a little bit about market research, because Barbara, I think that's a really important to understand, what are they looking for. And there's going to be we're going to cover some generational stuff here too. And you mentioned it, Derry, but like creating that value for attendees is what's going to benefit your exhibitors too, because they're realizing that if you don't do that, and we're going to dive deeper into like what surprisingly exhibitors think you need to do. So we'll get to some of that. So I wanted to sort of say like, okay, so what are some key takeaways do you think about even just some of these numbers? And I really want, especially this first bullet, I think is super important, is like, don't mistake this optimism for complacency or satisfaction. I think a lot of times up to 2019, repeat exhibitors, we thought they were satisfied. In a lot of ways, I'm not sure if that's the case. And complacency, meaning that like, hey, okay, people are excited to come back to events. We can just pull out the 2019 playbook and they'll be happy. And the data is showing, no, their expectations of you is higher than I think it's ever been. Which higher, they're high, and the return on investment will be of paramount importance, because I have a strong sense, Derry and I agree on this, that budgets are going to tighten, and the C-suite has more of an influence in relation to events. I mean, I can tell you, chief marketing officers and chief revenue officers, chief growth officers are saying, hey, we spend a lot of money going to trade shows. Are we getting the return on investment if we're spending it? And by the way, we all know travel's gotten crazy expensive. And so these are the things that, CFOs have said, hey, we didn't have a travel budget for a couple of years. As we've come back, events are part of that. And then finally, like, it's, we talk about it, but like, are we getting creative in our strategies that guarantee a positive attendee and exhibitor experience? Are we thinking about being more creative, asking more questions to make sure that we deliver on that? Because expectations have changed, your audience have changed. I love everybody. Yes, feel free to test. I love people are changing their names. This is helpful. Thank you, Cindy, those that are jumping in and changing that so I can actually talk to you directly. But so this was another thing. Daria, we really wanted to dive in and understanding, like, we hear a lot about leads, right? That's why we go to trade show. What do we find here, Daria?
So this surprised both of us. And the number one thing that people want in 2023 from going to events is visibility. So we talked about this. Is this due to COVID? Can we 100% sure say it's because of that? We can't. But we really feel like people took live events for granted. Then COVID happened, and they realized they were not getting the visibility of being at the live event. Leads was up there at 59%, but it was not the number one priority for them to accomplish in events this year. And then half of the respondents said brand reputation, which I think brand reputation and visibility can kind of tie in together. Of course, they want to generate leads at events, who doesn't? But they also realize, and I think, we can almost safely say that COVID really did make them think, okay, I was taking for granted being at those live events. It is so important to be out there so people can keep hearing you and talking to you, and your brand recognition maintains a strong presence.
I think that's important. I know one of you had to jump and go talk to an exhibitor. That so you hear this data and can start to talk to them about visibility, branding, and leads, because it's such a piece to it. But Darren and I were talking about this. Measuring brand reputation and visibility is going to be challenging as that pressure increases to deliver measurable ROI, because measuring visibility is a lot harder. We saw a lot of ways that we looked at that in the virtual world. how do you measure that in the in-person? And they're starting to look to you to do that. Leads is an easy way to come back and say, we got this many leads, we scanned this many badges, and here's how they flowed through the pipeline. But when you look at this data, I think this is part of your conversation back to the exhibitors, is saying, look, not only, our events designed to generate leads, but we want to make sure you increase your visibility and enhance your reputation. That's why you come back to us. So that's why we thought this data was really important. So Darian, let's talk about some of the key actions, recommendations that we thought about.
Yeah, so one of the things we firmly believe in is that show should be full cycle. You should be engaging with them before, during, and after. Yes, being at that show in person is so important to them, but don't forget about the before and after for that. The smaller exhibitors. So we did ask the question on why they are increasing, decreasing, or staying the same for their events. And what I noticed is the smaller exhibitors, some of these, they're only going to one show. That is half their marketing budget, and they want to be visible there. They want to generate those leads. And so it's so pivotal to them to make sure it's a successful show. We're going to talk about this shortly, but exhibitor education is paramount to educate companies so they can get that visibility and recognition that they deserve.
Hey, Cindy, just apply. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all forgotten too, and I can tell you this, we've had some changeover in our event staff, and the person that you may have contacted us for 10 years is not here to talk about, oh, I know this event, we've gone every year. They come to me and are like, I've never been to this event, I don't know your audience and those things. So it's going to be interesting is to get back there and making sure that exhibitor education is part of that, because you may be talking to a completely new person that has never been to your event, never been in your industry, and maybe never exhibited. I was that exhibitor way back in the days, and I was like, well, I don't need carpet because I didn't read the exhibitor kit. So it's going to be more challenging. That's also too why I love Marlis's book. It really talks about a lot of these pieces, even down to travel, like getting exhibitors to think differently is going to be a piece of it. So that sort of leads us to our big three is people seeking more, right?
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned Marlis's book, because at contest time, we're giving away a copy of Marlis's book to the first person who can answer this statement correctly. 84% of exhibitors believe that what is the key driver for attendance at events. So feel free to comment in the chat, and the first person that answers correctly, we'll send you a free book.
All right, Barbara, have free reg. That's good to see you use. Okay, interesting. Also good to see Marjorie. They did exhibitor webinar and had strongest participation than ever. Agree, everyone looking for info. Reg cost. All right, well, the person right before, how about can the person that said content at 12:56, right? Because Cheryl said it next. All right, well, let's, yes, everybody is jumping in here. We'll make sure we get through there because one person doesn't have their name there. You're going to be surprised about this. They were all great answers. And I know both of us were like, really? Oh, it's exhibitor swag. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. That is not like, I'm sure some of your exhibitors think that that's the case, right? It's my swag that comes. I also learned, some of you may know, I teach CEM courses, and I learned this, I can't say it's they talk about the swag folks at the end of your show. They call them the trick-or-treaters. So I just love it. So it's not swag. Yeah, several of you got this. It's education. This was a real big surprise that exhibitors made this connection. So like we started like, okay, so what does this mean for you out there? Like, how do we sort of get our head around this? Oh, some of my illustrations got messed up there. Sorry about that. Look, and I know there are certain industries that struggle with this. I'm hearing more creative ways, about CEUs or, medical, you can't have certain things, but if you're not looking at content as an exhibitor and sponsor revenue driving opportunity, both before, during, and after your event, I think you're missing the boat. Exhibitors are looking, I'm gonna get ahead of myself. Like they view themselves as thought leaders, and many times they are or have access to them. So how are you utilizing them for the content? They realize that's why attendees are coming. So how do they connect themselves? And I'll tell you, I share this example because this, sometimes we struggle with like, okay, great. Do we give an exhibitor a stage, or are they gonna, go in our regular sessions and then do pitches? But I've one of the best examples I've seen of an organization that was a little fearful to say, like, we can't give exhibitors stages. Some do, some don't. They encouraged their exhibitors to bring in thought leaders who were their clients. So, example, one of the exhibitors, their client is Starbucks. Okay, great example. And they brought in Starbucks' CTO, and they did sessions like 5 and 10 minute little mini sessions with their clients. So they added value to bring people to their booth, and then they added educational value, and they leveraged their clients. So I use this as an example of other ways to think about. We've seen the stages. Another example I always throw out here is selling focus groups or allowing people to do like consulting sessions. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, fabulous module, non-dues revenue from partners who deliver comment. They are SMEs. Thank you, Barbara. That is, I mean, they really are. And I've also seen too where people deliver on the trade show floor mini sessions that say, look, we're going to deliver these educational sessions from the people that are the leaders in the space. And so then what I really think about too is like, how do we align, like, is our content aligned with our exhibitors? Like, they should be, right? If this is what people are seeking, in your sessions, shouldn't your exhibitors align? Is there a gap? And then, for example, like, can you make recommendations, whether through, like AI or even in your program, saying like, look, if you went to this session, these are the exhibitors that can deliver products and services on this type of content. And then finally, I'm a big believer, the more we blur those lines, if you can, between the education sessions and the show floor, the more value you're going to drive for everyone. Because exhibitors love to be there. Yeah, someone posted in there, yeah, interested in hearing, are those who are doing this, bring attendees to the booths. I know Landscape Architects does a great job of that. They've become popular sold out tours, and again, it's 15 minutes on each topic. Cases over cocktails. Oh, Megan, I love that. For sponsoring exhibitors to present case studies. Cases over cocktails. Totally stealing that. This is why we do this. So yeah, please feel free to chat. Never let us combine education and industry. Yeah, Sue, I think that's a lot of it's a challenge that you have to face or think about. How could we do it on the show floor that isn't education? I love cases of cocktails. So Daria, what else stood out in terms of seeking more?
This might not be a surprise to people because I feel like, this is continuing and it will continue to be a big issue for people. But 49% of exhibitors that we surveyed says sustainability is a top priority when it comes to events. So I think it's important not only to do some activities at your show that really honor that, but also to, basically work with the vendors to prioritize sustainability and like design and execution. Another one is like, how do you effectively communicate this? Especially like with the younger generations, like tell people what you are doing. I think that's so important for people to be aware of that. And then also, by doing right by the planet, are you providing your exhibitors education on the topic? Maybe, they don't know and they would be thrilled to actually get just some, FAQs on this. So I feel like this, while 49% said it was a top priority, I really believe this is going to go, like when we do a survey in September, that this is even going to be higher. I feel like this is just going to continue to be a hot topic that to make exhibitors and attendees happy, it's something that we need to make a priority.
That's a quote from one of the surveys, right?
Yes.
We know it's important, but we don't know where to start.
Yes. So let's help them.
Well, I'll cover this last little bullet because I can speak from personal experiences. But now we're in a time, I think we've talked about economic pressures. We've talked about sustainability, but I'm worried that we're in this time where sustainability may be put in the back seat to save on cost. Is it cheaper to trash it versus ship it? And, I talked to a lot of our friends out in the industry, and they're saying that because of rising costs and trucking driver shortages, things like that, that sometimes, sadly, it's cheaper to trash it than it is to ship it. And so, I think this is something that you're going to have to play with. I know a lot of organizations are building out more sustainability statements, but we'll talk about some. I want to share one other piece around that. I'm getting ahead of myself. I always get excited to share this data. All right, more data coming. What else do they expect?
They want community-driven initiatives. 42% of exhibitors felt that this is also a priority to them. So looking at ways that we can do this. And what does that mean for you? Having the mindset of event communities start with involving your exhibitors in your processes and your planning. Get them involved in every step of the way that you can. And yeah, do you have an exhibitor advisory committee? If not, maybe something to think about. Also, it's 365 out of the year. Communities require organizers to facilitate relationships and engagement year round. Your exhibitors and sponsors want to be a part of it. We can't stress that enough. I mean, the survey data just really gave us a perspective of, yeah, how do we create that sense of community? We're going to talk about the demographic later on, but digital continues to be so important. Community requires digital connections to really maximize that experience, and the younger audience expect it, but also you have to have a fine balance between the old school networking as well. And revenue. Harnessing community, can also create additional revenue sources, looking at your local community and how you can get them involved at your show. There's just so many. Community is like one word, but it encompasses so many different ways that you can harness it.
I think this, Jared, to me was also sort of a nod to what we saw in the virtual world, where we realized that like we had placed our eggs in this 2 or 3 day basket, and like we all hung our hat on that, myself included. And then so suddenly we realized like, hey, we want to connect with people. These are our buyers year round, and Derry mentioned it, like, can we do webinars? Can we do, because there's things, can we get in front of that audience in other ways? And I say the for-profit show organizers do this really, really well. I think associations are struggling with this to manage, like, hey, we have an event, we may have community around membership. How do we tie all this together? And I think some of this has been on the want to list, but it was interesting that the survey from exhibitors saying like they view community as a lot more than just your event in opportunities. Derry mentioned they want to make those connections, because to deliver that value means just more than 3 days, because you offer that curated experience. And so, Derry, I got to give you the credit. What your audiences want, what they really, really want. And that's all the thinking I got.
I'm showing my age a little there, but yes, I was.
Hopefully my daughter didn't hear that, because I would have gotten her eye roll, Derry, totally there.
Yes, so I think what's really standing out to us is content is still king to everyone. Not only do the show organizers expect that the attendees want the content, but they want it too. They want to be also seen as the thought leaders. It's about offering not only content at the event, but also ways that the exhibitors can provide content too, which kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone too. Another thing that we mentioned is sustainable events are in demand. Climate risk is a trade show risk. Companies are starting to evaluate and define their limits, and younger attendees are looking at this closer and closer with the millennials and the Gen Z. And another thing that really stood out is the community building initiatives drive engagement, revenue, and satisfaction. So looking at all the different avenues you can explore in the community arena to really maximize your show.
Well, this is probably one of my favorite areas in the survey, was looking at engaging the most valuable demographic. So I think we've got another, right? I'm hoping you use your chat here, because we're curious, like, what is your organization or association's biggest attendee demographic? So boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, I forget, there's a new one now. But let us know in the chat, give us some sense of what do you think your biggest attendance demographic is, people that come to your events. Obviously, organizations vary and attract different people. Some industries that tend to attract different ages. But pop it in the chat there. We love millennials and Gen X from Eric. Yeah, I got some good news coming from you. Boomers, okay, interesting. Boomers and Gen X, interesting. Yeah, so give us a sense. Who's your biggest demographic? Because I think a lot of organizations are struggling. Laura says we attract all demographics. Okay, good. Boomers and Gen X. I feel like there's some data coming there. It's gonna, but ours are East Coast and we're in the West Coast.
So
not necessarily age demographic, but all right, good.
Rich and I were a little surprised by this. I think because we're a little biased because we're Gen Xers, but we asked the question, they can only answer one because we were curious on this. What demographic are you most focused on? And 47% of exhibitors are targeting millennials. And just a little background information, because I had to look at this up myself because I thought millennials were like 40 and under, but technically millennials are currently between the age of 27 and 42 and make up the largest population in the United States with over 72 million people in this age range. Just to show you where some of the other demographics played out. Gen X was the second highest at 23%. Gen Z was 21%, and Boomers was 9%. So I don't know if you're surprised by this, comment in the chat, because we were. I really thought it would be Gen Xers, but no, they've moved on from us, Rich.
I know. That was our takeaway. Was like they're not talking to us. But I'll also share a story. Last week I taught this, like I said, I mentioned CEM, and but also we talk, a lot of this is US obviously data, but it was interesting talking to a student who said, like, in Latin America, the younger generations tend to be more the decision makers, and she said, I watch US exhibitors come and misidentify who comes to the booth as a decision maker. So Derek, read us some of these quotes, because we want to dive a little further because it certainly stood out to us.
Yes, and I'm going to read all these quotes because one of our biggest, what we wanted to do on the survey was not only like get the demographic, but understand the why. And boy, did they come out and tell us why. One person said millennials also have strong buying power due to their income and spending habits. They are empowered by the digital world. I love that, which gives them access to unlimited information at their fingertips. We believe that marketing to this demographic is essential for any successful exhibition. I'm like, oh, okay, wow. And then another person said, we understand that millennials are the next generation of decision makers. And as such, we continue to focus on them when we exhibit at trade shows. And then another quote we got from one of the respondents was, as an exhibitor, our focus is on the millennial demographic. They are the largest, most influential consumer group today and will continue to be in the future. I think that's key, will continue to be in the future. We understand that millennials represent a tremendous opportunity for businesses, which is why we pay close attention to their needs and wants. So yeah, if there was any doubt they just checked something, no, they totally met millennials and they gave us the why on that.
What I love too, you force them to pick one. I mean, because I think a lot, and again, it's depending on your product or service, some would naturally lend themselves in different directions, but you sort of force them to pick the choice. Mm-hmm. And then it was backed up by quotes like that. Millennials expect to create a better future using the collaborative power of digital technology. And I think that's, that sort of combines the data that we're seeing with sustainability and digital. But also though, I sort of went back and I dug up, we did this survey back in 2022. I know we have a lot of association clients on today. We asked, why did you actively engage in association? And what stood out again is, look at this millennial. This is from data last year. Obviously, it's a year old, but like, what was important to them? Obviously, learn career skills and certifications. Yeah, content, right? That's why they're coming. Being able to network in person. Millennials, 51%. Highest in the group there. Network with others in digital platforms and community, 45%. Little below Gen X there, and having the opportunity to socialize with those with common interest. Same sort of thing, networking. So it was interesting to us too that two totally different studies. And when we pulled out again the millennial data, it lines back up. They do want to come back to in-person events, and that's I think refreshing to show organizers to say, okay, they're coming back, and oh, by the way, that's what a lot of exhibitors are looking for, because I think, again, our audiences are going to be different again this year. They're going to be younger, they're going to be less loyal to your industry because of the Great Resignation, the Great Retirement. I mean, there's a lot of stuff at play. So you have to think about, as an association, where are we attracting millennials to our audience? Are we delivering on these different strategies to make sure our exhibitors are satisfied? Because again, this was most interesting to us, because it sort of stood out, because again, it was really pretty definitive on that. So in terms of demographics, it looks like our copy got funny there. So again, that really creates that priceless chance to create those personalized experiences, allowing people to learn, interact, work with other attendees, partners, exhibitors. But I think we're going to have to think about, how to bring those same advantages before, during, and after the live event. That is really key, because that's what exhibitors are saying. And those younger millennials right there, they're looking for this.
100%. Yeah. And I think what we also saw from the quotes too is these millennials have significant buying power, and the exhibitors know it, and they're embracing that, and they expect them there. So looking at ways that we can get those millennials there by offering tech savvy experiences.
Yeah, that's when you look at your exhibitor education and things like, is your booth millennial ready? And I think some of your exhibitors would look at you like you're crazy, but yeah, are you delivering, even your exhibitors delivering on that in their booth? I love this. Again, this is called co-editing, right? Fonts between your machine and my machine. So apologies to everybody. Yeah. Go ahead, Darren. This was your hashtag there.
Yeah, when I was looking at all this data, the hashtag millennials move markets just came to me, and I'm like, really, that resonates. That's what they are. I mean, millennials are revolutionizing the market through their word of mouth marketing. I think is particularly stands out. Millennials have basically grown up with social media, influencers, things like that. So they really, really appreciate word of mouth. And I think it's super important for show organizers to understand that, embrace that, and kind of almost highlight it. What can you do at your events to really maximize the word of mouth marketing? And that's by creating those memorable experiences.
I'll bring up, Marjorie just put it in there. I hope she's not going to kill me, because she abbreviated her first name, but I know who it is. So yeah. Don't kill me. But she said, exhibitors are millennials too, not just the attendee pool. We need to communicate different with them too. That's a great point. Yeah, we really focused on your exhibitors, but yeah, they're going to look for something different. They're asking those tougher questions. And a lot of, I would say too, in the marketing department, it skews even younger, and they're the ones, like some of them buying booths. I've done enough booth sales in my career that when the marketing person comes back, they ask a lot of different questions than the sales guy, and sales guy, girl, but whatever, salesperson, they ask different questions. So that's a great point.
Fantastic point. Yes.
Yikes, my exhibitors might lean more millennial than my attendees. Interesting. Oh, talk about, I love this conversation. We're gonna there's a great conversation. Yeah, what happens if your exhibitors are more millennial than your attendees? Like how do they, exactly, how are they interacting? Speaking of exhibitor education, thinking about how do they interact with different audience types, and thinking about what a different generation person may want in a demo or something like that. Oh God, you guys are great. That's why I love chat open. So hopefully everybody can see. All right, so we're down to the final stretch. We've already heard some things. So we're gonna ask a poll to see how aligned we are with the data. Derek, if you can fire up that poll.
Okay, yes. Let's see here. Another technical issue here. Let's see.
Yeah, so we're curious what you think exhibitors fear there.
Okay, I'm launching it now. Sorry for that, guys. Do you see it now?
Yep.
So this is the exact same question that we asked the exhibitors. So we kind of want to see if it's parallel with what all you feel.
So the fun part is we see everybody voting. It's going to be interesting to see where it aligns up. Because some of it was surprising, some of it was not surprising. I don't want to say how the poll's going yet, but I think there's a lot of conversation and fear around that. We'll give everybody another minute on what's driving exhibitors, because I think this is what you're going to have to start to message, whether you're managing it, whether you're communicating how you're helping with it. All right, looks like everybody's paused for a bit there. Why don't we go ahead and close it? Interesting. Almost a tie between increased cost, decreased attendance, and finding innovative ways to connect with attendees. So really interesting. So let's reveal, what did this survey say?
76% cite exhibition costs as the #1 challenge in 2023. And it doesn't stop there, Rich. So this was one that we really, really dig deeper on. And we found that 89% that had booths 200 square feet or higher believe that that will be the challenge in 2023. And that is, I mean, a little shocking to me. I mean, I knew it would be like over 50%, but I didn't think it'd be that high.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't surprised when we dug deeper on booth size, but nearly 90% felt like it was cost. And some of them, when we opened up the webinar, if you joined late, there were a lot of folks talking about costs. And yeah, I mean, freight, trades, shipping, booth design, materials, those are the things that a lot of exhibitors are talking about. So you're going to have to be ready to address that. Like, how are you addressing that? And that's what I want to ask. Let's do a knowledge share. For those who you had joined, I'd love to put in the chat, like, are you negotiating new rates? Are you trying to give exhibitors tips on how to save, or do you think exhibitors are taking less? I'd love to hear in the chat, like, what are folks doing to address this? I will say, I'll plug too, TSNN just put out an interesting article today about sort of a partnership with CISO and UFI and SEER and all the big players, looking at what were the costs between, how much does electrical cost in Philly versus Florida and Nashville. And it was really interesting today. If you haven't seen it in TSNN today, it's really interesting to look at where cities come in those costs. So feel free to share in the chat if you're helping control costs, and we'll keep moving. So offering more booth packages, turnkey solutions. Yeah, I mean, a lot of exhibitors love that, right? I mean, it's more, plug and play, show up, send my graphics. I'm not, again, back to the example of, should I put our booth on a truck and pay for, shipping, or should we just offer that? So yeah, thanks, Sandy. Yeah, others are looking at, or if you're not, I think you're going to have to start to figure out. I mean, some of this is already negotiated, obviously, but your exhibitors are fearful of this. So what was the rest of the data? Because here's some other. Natalie said, for some packages, we kept the cost the same and reduced the amounts of benefits. Oh, that's a smart play. I like that. Laura said, we kept our booth prices the same for 2019. Unfortunately, we can't control our costs. Yep. Including booth without charge for all sponsorship options above a certain level. Booth packages stay the same. Sizing does not, encouraging the register early before price increases. We carpet the entire floor, but our event is likely the only one for most of our exhibitors. Interesting. So yeah, feel free to, this is what I think others want to hear too. How are we judging those things? It's the hotel rates and the general services contractor rates are the biggest complaints. Yeah, I mean, food is just, our attendees, they sure don't get that we pay $125 a gallon for coffee when they ask. We'd like coffee all day long, right? So there were some other things that sort of stood out to us that we talk about but can't get our head around.
Yes, and the #1, besides cost, was COVID. Here we sometimes think it's in the rearview mirror. I mean, but we're not quite there yet. With 64% saying they thought it could possibly or it will have an impact on events in 2023. And that's higher than we thought, honestly. I'm not sure if anyone else feels that way, but feel free to comment and chat. Another challenge they felt is innovative ways to connect with attendees. I don't know about you all, but I get so many emails a day, and trying to cut through that noise and actually capture my attention, that is a challenge. So, because everyone does email marketing. I mean, everyone does social media more. It's looking at those, what can you do to stand out from the crowd? And I think that is even just going to get higher and higher as we become more tech savvy, and there's so many things competing for your attention. And 37% cited decreased attendance as a challenge. I feel like that's one that's just never going to go away. That's always going to be an uphill battle that we'll be fighting, but we got that. We got this.
Yeah, it was a little. I was I guess a little pleasantly surprised this wasn't higher. You know, but maybe because cost. I mean, I see lots of material handling, labor is a big one. Again, read that TSN article today. It's really interesting to see where labor is coming in. I mean, everyone's facing labor pressures at this point. So a couple key takeaways as we start to round out. We got a couple minutes to go. Derry and I really struggled with that COVID one, and where we really landed was, you know, if exhibitors are still concerned about lingering impacts of COVID, are they fearful for themselves, or are they fearful for your attendees are fearful? Like, you need to find this out. Like, again, I think, Derry, you said it, like, maybe it's that they think attendees are going to be fearful, that's going to decrease attendance.
Right.
Derry, you talked about it, but, you know, 54%, over half of the exhibitors said they're concerned with innovative ways with attendees. You know, are you thinking of that as a complex strategy, implementing tools? How are you expediting those connections? Because, or again, I forget who said it earlier today, but, you know, those qualified or candidates, those qualified buyers, trying to make sure that when people spend their time at an event, it's a really valuable tool. And I got to be honest, I think we're going to have to really be more transparent in setting expectations around addressing attendance, because, and I say this, it shows that are not recovering as expected by exhibitors will seek alternatives, because I think there's a disconnect between reality, what exhibitors expect. They've heard in the media that, you know, oh, CES had this many people, or this event, you know, World of Concrete had this many people. And so I think it sets an expectation for some exhibitors, like your show is going to have 2019 records, and you know, blowing out the doors. While we know a lot of our clients are still in the 50-60%. So I think you're going to have to think about that transparency. I mean, all the marketing folks are going to have to figure out, we used to market like, you know, 40,000 attendees, and now we're like 30,000 qualified buyers, you know, I mean, so we'll have to think about how that plays out. So, so Derry, let's sort of take people on the final round out here. You know, like, what does it all mean for the folks that are on the call today?
Well, the first one is you got to understand the objective of the exhibitors, and we're trying to do our part, and we want to continually do surveys to them and figure out what do they want. And I think, you know, if you can find that out and interview them and do surveys and make sure that's a big priority for you, so you can understand what is their desired outcome from attending your event. You know, I think identify opportunities and capitalize on them. You know, to how do you cut through the noise? Find ways that can make you stand out from the rest of the shows. Complement the basic needs. You should offer more than just exhibition space and marketing materials. I mean, look at ways to provide additional resources and opportunities. Could that be, you know, offering them a way to be a thought leader and provide content at your show? Just looking at unique ways to really stand out. You know, definitely monitor the feedback and develop, you know, engagement strategies on how to basically see what they want, what the attendees want, and how you can basically elevate the processes to make things just really come together in a cohesive way. And I think that of all this, monitoring feedback is the most important thing that you can do, because nobody knows what they want more than themselves. So not just at the show, but during the or before the show, after the show, just, you know, things are changing, you know. I mean, I think if we would have done this survey in 2019, the results would have been completely different. And that's why we want to do this again at the end of the year to see, you know, are things staying the same? I don't think they will. So you just constantly have to monitor.
And that was really the goal. Is we're hoping this data gives you sort of insight into exhibitors across the board, and that you can use as benchmarks to say, hey, how are we performing? Or again, get that conversation going on fears. I would really tackle the fears, the generational items. I mean, obviously sustainability and some other things, but trying to go back to this, especially for you association folks out there, like, you know, is this lining up with who we serve, and what are we doing to deliver on that? Because expectations are reality when it comes to exhibitors. We know they don't read, but you're going to have to educate them on this new thing. So what we want you to do next is, so, hey, look, like Derry said, we're going to do this again. But we're also going to do some sort of study in between. And our goal is to spin these out pretty quickly and get to the audiences you want to hear. But I put my email address in, which probably put Derry's. Feel free in the chat, like, what do you want us to ask next? Who do you want us to ask next? Either email myself or put it in the chat today, because we want to build more data like this. Or if there's things that you want us to dive further. I mean, Derry and I already have information from this webinar that we want to dive further on that. Derry, you want to
For
go
sure.
ahead and pop
And
that?
I actually created a form too, if people want to contact us that way. It's anonymous, so you can put whatever you want. And
can you pop that in the chat?
Sure.
By chance?
Yeah.
I can't copy and paste.
Yeah. Let me pull that up.
So again, we'll pop that in the chat. So if you can post us things like, you know, what kind of questions do you want us to ask, or do you want further questions, like I said, from this to follow up? But again, in closing, like this to us is, everyone is our event heroes. I feel like in 2023, we want to recognize event heroes like you out there. You continue to create these unforgettable experiences with confidence and finesse. I always say there's a reason it's the top 5 most stressful jobs in the world, which is crazy to think about. And you make fire look like fireworks. So we really want to celebrate that. Our next webinar that Derry and I will be doing is Unlocking the Power of the Event Manager's Toolkit. So stay tuned for invitations for that. Speaking of awards, we try to recognize people across the industry. A lot of awards are about size of show and net square feet. Ours awards are really about the people that put on events. We're awarded the first set a while ago. I mean, wide ranging from show organizers down to a pastor that runs events that just is making a difference in the events business. We also did recently, for those of you that heard that we did buy a registration company, we had a webinar about some of the power and the features of that. But really in the end, happy to take any last minute questions. I mean, I think we are right up against time. Yet 1 minute to go. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, feel free to connect with us. There's our email, there's our Twitter. Click the links, go to the LinkedIn, feel free to email us. Hopefully this has been value for you. It was great. Derry, thank you for sharing the stage with me. I know I'm difficult to work with.
Oh, not at all. But yeah, we'll get that report out to you too. I think you guys will all find that very, very helpful.
Yeah, so, all right, well, that's the bottom of the hour. Thanks everybody for joining. We hope to see you soon, and take care, everybody.
Bye.